Hello, hello. Welcome to episode 36 of the Brew from the Bothy podcast. Can you hear my ice clinking? This is because it's not a brew day, it is a iced ginger cordial day today. Slanger. It's very hot here in the UK and it is getting hotter. Well, in my part of the UK, it's getting hotter, so anything to keep me refreshed and cool is the order of the day. She says, wearing a merino top, but actually it's quite cooling. So obviously I'm wearing my new top, but I'm going to talk about this in off my needles. But I put a lot of time and effort into this top over the last 2 weeks to get it ready for today, but also to get it ready for the good weather that we're having. So let's dig into episode 36. We're going to start with on my hooks, and let's start with something that I have made zero progress with, but I want to tell you a little bit about the yarn in case you wanted to do something similar. I still have just like a little tiny strip on my everyday tank top, but Stasia told me, and she is absolutely spot on, that the yarn that I'm using, Olivia by Ovhela Negra, which is a yarn shop in Porto in Portugal, seems very similar to Holst Garn's Coast. So I've just had a little look and I think it's the same yarn, and they've bought it wholesale or maybe on cones and dyed it. It's the exact same composition. It looks the same, it's the same yardage, it's the same everything. So if you like the look of the yarn that I'm using for my everyday tank, I'm holding it 2 strands together for my tank to get a thicker fabric, which works for the tank top itself, but also works for what I want in my wardrobe. But if you wanted a similar yarn to make a similar top that is kind of summer suitable, but you don't want to go to Portugal, then Holst Garn Coast, I'll pop a link in the drop down box below. I think it's the same yarn and I think it's been dyed by this yarn shop, or maybe this is Holst Garn with a different label on it, which does sometimes happen in yarn shops. I might go digging and see if I can find this colour. So if you fancy it, really good, 55%. I think it's not baby merino, lambswool merino, 45% cotton. It's got really decent structure to it. Doesn't have any real give, but if you want a top that is just gonna sit there and like drape and not really move and not stretch and not do much, then this is perfect. I've got a few hours on a train coming up this weekend, and this is the project that I'm going to take because I think it will be nice and cool, and also it means I can get some time into my everyday tank top. So nothing much to report on this other than if you fancy the wool, go for Holst Garn. Now the other thing that I started and is on my hook, I started it yesterday. First of all, I'm going to talk more about this bag at the end as well, but I thought it was the perfect project bag. Now I'm going to show you a little swatch which won't look like anything, but hopefully it will give you an indication of like the creativity that can come from a swatch and how as a designer I can see the final product and not just see the swatch, if that makes any sense. Like I can go beyond the swatch to see how the final thing will pull together and really work together. At the moment it just looks a bit like a Scotland flag. But this is going to be, believe it or not, an advent calendar. And let me push this up so you can see. So the idea is that this thicker blue stripe will be the stripe that is formed for every one of the colours that I'm going to use. This will be a blanket that is based on either using an advent mini skein. I don't know why we've got a bit of plant vegetation there, or it could be a scrap buster as well. So the idea is that each stripe would use up 20 grams of a 4-ply yarn, and then the little 3 row stripes that I've got going here in the light silvery grey would be the main colour that is breaking up each of the advent stripes. So the keen-eyed among you will maybe remember that I had been out hunting for an advent calendar, and I wasn't finding what I wanted. I didn't want something that was heavily variegated. Ideally, I wanted something that was semi-solid. And last October, when I was at the Stafford Wool Gathering Yarn Show, I came across a designer that was selling off lots of her stash, and I very fortuitously managed to buy an advent that she was selling, and it just has the most divine range of very muted, like, I don't know how to describe it. We're going from purples to blues to teals to plums. There's just everything in there. And I snapped this up as quickly as possible, and also bought the 3 skeins of the silver colour as well. Now, if you're watching this, you will see the beautiful lustre on this yarn. It shines, it just absolutely shines. And that's because it is 50% merino, 50% silk. So this is a very luxurious blanket, but I did not pay luxury prices for it, which is what I wanted, because, you know, as a designer, you can't always afford to pay top price for things. Like, I'm not a big name designer. I wasn't going to get yarn support for this, so I wanted to make it as affordable as possible, and I want to make sure I'm representing it as a scrap blanket as well, not just as an expensive advent blanket, because advents are expensive, especially if it's a 24 mini skein project, which this one will be. So the vision is all of these colours. I don't know where I'm going to start and where I'm going to finish yet, but in between every single one of the colours will be 3 rows of this, which the advent that I've got actually had 25 skeins in it, but this one was so bright by comparison that I've taken it out of the equation, and I only want a 24 skein advent. It just doesn't fit in my opinion, so that's why I'm using this for swatching. So although the contrast looks really quite bright between these two, I feel like the contrast of the silver in with all of these mini skeins is really going to work and give quite a lot of relief against the darkness of it. I could have gone really moody and really grey instead, but I think that this silver moon colour is really going to show off to the best degree all of the other colours, and it will bring cohesion to the whole set and make it bright rather than really dark and moody, but still have some moodiness about it. And then it will be finished off with a border all the way around in this colour as well. So I have 3 skeins of the silver, and I did the maths last night and I think it all works. It's going to be a decent sized lap blanket by the end, so maybe about 120 centimetres by about 140, which is like my favourite sized 1-person blanket. I said to Matthew last night, when I finished this, he and our cat are not allowed anywhere near this blanket. This will be my own personal luxurious blanket, and our cat's claws, because he's got like talons, he's not allowed anywhere near this. So let's just wear it as a necklace. I am planning on getting this blanket done. It's July. I'm doing this as a kind of Christmas in July thing, where I'm making myself work on it now, because I really want this blanket to be ready for when everybody's opening their advents at the start of December. I know, because of some of my other blankets that work well for mini skeins, that people really start looking for mini skein advent projects in January and February. But I want to have this all over social media. I want to be showing this off to you month by month as I add each colour in, and I just I can't wait to start working on it. And I'm sure it's really hard for you to see how this little swatch is going to become something beautiful, but trust me, it absolutely is. I've been dying to get my hooks into this for months now. This is very loosely based on a similar stitch pattern that I used for my halo cowl, and as I was working on that I was thinking this needs to be a blanket. This has to be something beyond just going into a cowl. This has to be used with different colours going through it. So I'm really excited to have this on my hooks. So I'm going to be talking about this a lot, and I will share it with you very quickly, month by month, as I've added more and more colours, so you can see how it's progressing and how big it's getting. But what that does mean is hopefully while we're in the desperate heat of this summer, I will have a smaller amount of blanket that I'm working with, and then as I get into the colder months I will have a lot more blanket on me, keeping me warm. So I'm very excited about this project. It's going to be called it was going to be called the Andarna blanket. If you know, you know. If you're like an Iron Flame Fourth Wing fan, Andarna is the best dragon, and I just got to the end of Iron Flame yesterday, and these colours are very Andarna colours for the end of Iron Flame. I don't know what's going to happen in Onyx Storm. So I was going to call it the Andarna blanket, and then I figured that actually, let me pull it back out again so you can see why. It actually reminds me of all of the colours that you get in agates and agate slices. So I think I'm going to call it the agate blanket, because I also love geology and I love fossils and I love rocks, and this feels very kind of agate appropriate. And also I checked and I don't think anybody else has done an agate blanket. So agate blanket it is, and I will be working away on this. Right, let's pop that one away. So that's it for crochet. One of the other reasons that I haven't done loads with crochet, like personal crochet, is because I'm working on a pair of crocheted socks for a publication, and those socks are setting the parameters for how all of my other future crochet socks will work. So I've been doing a lot of crocheting on socks, a lot of pattern writing for crocheted socks, a lot of thinking about how they work. So my work capacity for crafting has been taken up with crochet, and that just means that I've wanted to flip my hands over to knitting at night time, because sometimes I want to change it up within my brain, but also it's really good for my fingers to be doing slightly different movements, and for my wrists. So hence there's been a bit more knitting in the last 2 weeks than crocheting. Let me just take a slurp because I am so freaking hot. Let's have a look at off my needles. I've just grafted and finished up the first of my socks. This is a take on my mini Mania sock design. This is using the Luca S woolen walk sock wool that I found and I've just fallen in love with. So now that I've finished one, I'm just going to quietly work on the second one, and I won't talk about this sock again until I've actually got into autumn winter, tested it out, had a feel for it, put it through the washing machine, and I can report back and tell you how it is wearing. So I thought I would just show you the finished sock for now. I love it. I love how the variegated yarn has worked up with this another silvery grey colour. Really enjoyed working with this yarn. Even to the point that some of the sock yarns I have got in my stash I'm going to sell on Vinted, and then next time I come across the Luca S Woolen Walk sock yarn, I'm just going to buy a bit more of it when I need more sock yarn. But I now know that because of this, I've got other yarns in my stash that I'm never going to go to for socks for various reasons, and so I'm going to destash them and buy more of this when I happen to come across it. I said last time, or I asked the question, would it be helpful if I talked about how much each project actually costs me? And some of you come back and said yes please. So I paid £3.75 for 50 grams of this, and 50 grams is coming in at, I think it's 205 meters per 50 grams, 224 yards. So this sock, by the time I've done the second one, is going to be about 67 grams. So that means that this pair of socks will have cost me £5 in materials, in actual yarn. Obviously I'll have some left over, but then that would just count towards another sock. So when I talk about prices, I'll just talk about the amount of yarn that I've used, not what the original purchase price was, because I do like to use up scraps and get through it all. So everything gets used, but in terms of actual project, £5 for this pair of socks. Jolly, jolly, joyous, make me happy socks. The other thing that is finished, which I am wearing, I'm so pleased with, is my between ebb and flow top. So let me just stand up and model it. I'm really happy with this. I've gone a little bit looser than I normally would, and I've deliberately kept it quite cropped. So this panel on the right hand side is exactly as it was in the pattern in Anna Hoosman's Intarsia Knits pattern book, and all I did, because I didn't want the droopy boob, is I used the exact same sequencing from this right hand side on the left hand side, but dropped it down as it is in the pattern book, so you've got this difference rather than it looking a bit harlequin. So exact same sequencing, just drop down a little bit for this side, and I don't think I'm getting droopy boob, so I'm happy with that. Just so you can see, it's quite loosey-goosey and I quite like that, and I did do what I said I was going to do on the back of it. So give me a second, I'm going to change. Ta-da! So it's the same stitch increase, stitch decrease, front to back. So it means I can wear the top either way, and I did my stripe sequencing that I wanted to test out, and I do like it. I just wonder if it would have been better had I not made them disjointed. Like, I really like it. I think it's funky. I'm going to wear this a lot. I wore it yesterday, I put it back on today, and I've got like decent space down by my oxters. It sits just over my belly button. I've got a pair of high-waisted flared jeans I can see me wearing this with. I do have quite a lot of space, like material here, but that is because of the way that the top is designed. So it doesn't have the extra stitches that you would build here. It literally goes into a V one side to the other. So I expected that. For some reason it fits better with the other panel compared to this one. I don't know why. It fits better the other way around, but it's got the same number of stitches and the same amount of material. It might be just because I've been wearing it across the flat of my back, and the front is shaped to my bust, possibly, I don't know why. But I really like it. I love that I've got two tops out of one. I like that it's quite swishy and that it's warm without being too warm. I might have to take it off after I've done recording the podcast, because it's getting so hot now, and I might just move over to a sports bra. Basically, it's that hot. So overall, really chuffed with it. There are things that I would change if I was doing it again, but I'm not going to do it again. However, it's made me want to design my own summer top, and I like this idea of using the intarsia for the stripes, but I think I'll do it so that the stripes just run right the way across and that they aren't broken. But you've got one colour on one side of the panel, one colour on the other. And I'd really like to do it for knit and for crochet and have it with more shaping down here. But again, quite loose and with quite a lot of space in the underarms. So I think that's going to have to happen, but I would also look for some kind of summer yarn weight blend that I want to use. I've got the colours in my head. I know how I want to do it. So this has been a really good practice piece for me to think about summer tops, which is one of the things that I wanted to do this year. Again, let's tell you how much it cost. This whole top is a whopping 140 grams of wool, and I have used Knit by Numbers by John Arden Textiles, and that is currently, I didn't pay this much for it when I bought this yarn, but current day, if you're going to make it, it comes in at £24 per 100 grams, which is 400 metres, 437 yards. So £34 for this top for my 140 grams, just under £34. And I have still got loads of this yarn. It's like the yarn that will never end. So I've made the cardigan with it, made the top with it. I want to make a little pouch with it as well, and I suspect I'll still have loads of it left. It just keeps on going. It's the yarn, it keeps on giving. So yeah, really happy with my Between Ebb and Flow. As I see it here, I quite like the broken lines. I'm learning to live with it. I've been wearing it the other way round, but I quite like. I do like it. So one of the things that's happening is this weekend is our birthday weekend. Mine and Matthew's birthdays are 2 days apart, so we have like a nice celebratory weekend where we go and do something. And this time we're going to head down to London, and I am going to go to a yarn shop that I've never been to before, and I'm very excited by. It's down in Richmond, and it is called Knit With Me, and I'm really looking forward to it. And I think that the owner has got quite a lot of summer weight yarns in at the moment, so I want to go feel them, think about what might work for a summer top, and then maybe purchase some or not. Just like see what's there, see what colours are available, see whether she has got the types of yarn that will fit for what's in my head for the design. And then obviously that's a design that I will be working on towards the beginning of next year. But if I've got the yarn, I can sit and think about it and kind of let it percolate. So yeah, but imagine something like this, slightly more fitted, crocheted and knit in Intarsia. I've got the bug. I've got the Intarsia bug basically. If you want to give Intarsia a go, but you don't want to go to the lengths of buying the Intarsia knit book that I've been working from, then I'm going to pop a link down below, because Anna Hoosman also has a free of charge pattern on Hobie's website. You can just download it straight away, and it is called Rust and Rhythm, and it's a little necktie bandana scarf. It's a great little stash buster. It's got quite a lot of Intarsia in it, so it would be a really good test out to see whether you like Intarsia or not. But it is actually done in the shorter rows, so you don't have loads and loads of different bobbins to deal with, but it would be a very interesting Intarsia project to work from. I plan on making one of those as well, because I'm really enjoying Intarsia, but I'll pop the link in if you want to try a first Intarsia project from somebody that I trust to deliver really good Intarsia designs, and it's free of charge. Then go and have a look at Anna Hoosman's Rust and Rhythm. That brings me to On My Needles. I started a new project because I'd finished the top, and again a few months back I purchased finally the Penguin and Knit Collection book by Anna Maltz, This is a shawl that I have wanted to make for years and years and years, and I finally cast it on. It is a triangle shawl, uses 3 primary colours. It's got quite an interesting construction to it, and I love the fact that it's just like a really simple geometric shawl. And I've started working on it, but let me show you the colours that I'm using for it and also how far I've got with it. So back in February I went to Unravel Festival and I picked up 3 colours of loom wool that I fell in love with. I stood from across the room and saw their stand and was like captivated by it. It was beautiful, beautiful yarn, beautiful colours. It looks very hand-dyed and muted in their colour range, which I love. So I picked up 3 skeins. At the time I didn't know what I was going to do with it, and then I remembered Rockhopper. So I have got, my colourway is the beautiful dark green is called Murmuration. The soft rose pink is called Dirty Blossom, and then the maroony brown that I've got is called Rose Brown. And thinking back to the shawl, the geometric stripes, which are black and white in the shawl, I'm going to use the dirty brown, the rose brown, and the dirty petal, is it? Dirty Blossom. So they're my geometric stripes, and then the green is going to be the border at the top. Originally I was slightly concerned that the green and the brown didn't have enough contrast, but I used my red perspex trick and we're actually alright with it. There's enough contrast that it will all read really nicely, hopefully. So I haven't got lots of progress on this to show you because I've started, it starts at the longest end, so I started with 201 stitches, but hopefully you can see that what it does is has a little miter kick out at the end, and that is what creates the first stripe. So we go all the way down until I've got kept on reducing stitches at the miter corner, and then I will be adding in the second colour and doing a little bit on that, and then go back to the maroony brown colour to create a next stripe, and then adding this one in. I really am enjoying the construction of it, and it's garter stitch, which just makes it very squidgy and lovely and a fairly mindless knit. Having done a lot of purling recently with this top and the cardigan, it's really nice to not have to purl, because although my purling is now much faster because I'm doing Portuguese purling, I still don't love it. I've just sped up with it. So this is a lovely little mindless knit for me to be able to crack on with and garter stitch away to my heart's content with enough interest, because you've got the colour change, and when you do the colour change you have some little eyelets that are created as well, so there's enough interest with the colour change. Yeah, it's just that perfect hit of colour interest, technique interest, and dull enough that you can just, not dull, that's unfair, like mindless enough that you can just keep on going with it without really thinking too hard about it. So really enjoying this. I will keep on plugging away. It's probably going to take quite a while because it's quite a sizable shawl. The shawl should be done with a heavy lace weight, but I'm doing it with 4-ply because that's what I've got, and I think it will work perfectly well. And I've seen from other people's projects that they've done it in 4-ply as well, and it's fine. So I'm like, fingers crossed that I won't run out of yarn. I did not swatch. I've been a very bad knitter. I couldn't be bothered. I was just like, let's just go and see what it takes me. Because I know she does many skeins of these, so if I get really stuck, I'll just buy a little bit more. Yeah, so I will keep on plugging away with that and feedback next time and let you know how I've got on with it. So I was totally ready to report back and say that I had nothing incoming in the last 2 weeks. And when I got home last night, there was a parcel for me from lovely Marge of affectionately Marge. I'm going to pop her Instagram and her folksy shop down below. Yesterday I was over at Trentham having a design day with my friend Heather. Trentham is a landscape garden, kind of smallish country estate just outside of Stoke-on-Trent, and it has a massive lake and some pools, and in the summer it just has so many dragonflies. It is just like you can't walk somewhere without like walking past 10 dragonflies. And yesterday we saw a whopper that was maybe a good 10-12 centimetres in length flying around. It's huge. And then obviously we'd been talking about Iron Flame and the dragons in the Rebecca Yaros books as well. So as we were leaving, I said, oh, it's been a very dragonfly day. And then when I got home and I got this lovely parcel from Marge, which I thought was just going to have some little bits of naturally dyed yarn for me to test out and have a little look at. And it was a massive flaming box. And in it was a dragonfly bag. So what had been a very dragonfly day just became a really big dragonfly day, and this is now housing my Agate blanket because it's a massive bag and it's so beautiful. I've been seeing this on Instagram and eyeing it up for some time now, and I don't know how on earth Marge has made it. Beautiful linen fabric, hand sewn by Marge, and I just don't know how she's done the embroidery of the dragonfly, but it's beautiful, and it's got an inside zipper. I love it. This is one of 4, and I think she has some left in the shop. Like I say, I will pop a link below to make sure that if you want to get your little paws on a dragonfly, massive dragonfly suitable for blankets and garments, then you can get your hands on one too. It's so beautifully made. I'm just chuffed to bits. The bits that Marge sent me that were yarn that I was expecting were loads of little bits in different dye types. So we've got shades of indigo that are in there. This one is walnut, I think. Yep, walnut, which I've never tried dyeing before. I've done little bits and pieces with naturally dyed yarn before. I had quite a lot of success with nettle, and I have a jumper's worth of nettle dyed yarn. This one is also indigo, which I suspect all 3 of these are, because you can take an indigo vat, and as it's been further and further exhausted, you can get different colours. You can add iron as a modifier to sadden off some of the colours. Like, there's just so much that you can do with naturally dyed yarn to get different colours represented. So I'm gonna have a play with all of these. I actually think they could be like a halo cowl, and you could use them as all of the stripes. There was also, I'm going to try not to crinkle here, these ones are shades of madder, and again you can see like probably first batch, second, third, fourth, so you can see how the colour is going down as you move through and the dye is being exhausted. I love madder as a naturally dyed colour. I'm just really drawn to how muted and pared back the colours are. But like, look at these two together. Yes, love it. So I'm going to make something of these. I just don't know what yet, but perfect for showing off naturally dyed yarns. The other thing that Marge very naughtily sent me was a massive skein of her hand spun yarn. I think that Marge is just a bit of a like omnicrafter and can turn her hand to anything. She weaves. She's got her own woven bags in the shop which are just phenomenal. Hand spun, the naturally dyed, like she's dabbling in all the things. This is a bit of a whopper, so it is Shetland, Portland, Corriedale, but it's mulberry silk and bamboo in there as well. and it's coming in at 25 yards over 200 grams as a 3-ply yarn. What Marge doesn't know is that I've been secret squirreling hand spun yarns away for the last year or so, because I want to show how in some of my crochet patterns in particular you can use hand spun, because it doesn't really matter how much yarn you've got. So something like one way or another little shawl you could use hand spun for. Positivity spiral cowl you can use hand spun for, because they are not, as long as you've got enough to start with, you can get a whole project out of them and you can finish when you finished your yarn. They're not like you need 525 grams of yarn. They're not those kind of projects. Same with the Omni shawl as well, because you start at the smallest point, you finish when you finish your yarn basically. So I am going to secret squirrel this away. I'm going to make something beautiful out of it, and then I'm going to send it back to Marge as a thank you for sending me all these beautiful goodies. Yeah, totally unexpected, but love that, like, this is so aligned with crafting and what we do, and just beautiful handmade things that have not come from Temu, that have not come from Shein, that are touched by actual human beings pouring love into their labour of craft, not, most likely going through horrendous working conditions. This is beautiful, so I'm really grateful for this. Thank you. I'm looking forward to having a play in the winter with all of these bits. I think that's it for now. I think I need to hurry up and get this edited, because it's now 20 to 11 and you're expecting this to land in about 2 hours and 20 minutes time. It's going to take me that long just to do the, the captions. No lunch for me till later. Right, lovely people, so nice to spend some time with you with my very cooling ginger cordial. Keep cool if you can, and I will see you in 2 weeks' time when I have been yarn shopping in London. Whoop whoop! See you soon. Oh, I am waving.